That woman was struck by a vehicle on Father's Day at a peaceful vigil outside of Delaney Hall, a for-profit detention center that the government is spending millions of dollars to house undocumented immigrants, many of whom are fathers with zero violent criminal record. This is why people were outside protesting on Father's Day. And that woman was from Minnesota. She was waving an American flag, she wasn't facing the road, and she was struck behind her back. This is not just a story about her getting hit by the car. This is just the beginning of the abuse that we're seeing our government conduct on American citizens demanding humanitarian protections. To continue to get accurate breakdowns of the most important news of the day, subscribe to Courier below. My name's Mason, I'm a progressive live streamer, and I've partnered with Courier to talk about this horrific story. This was a Father's Day vigil, not a spontaneous protest, held outside Delaney Hall that was organized by Eyes on Ice and Sussex Visibility Brigade. It had about 75 vigil attendees, plus 15 to 20 additional protesters that were already outside Delaney Hall. At this vigil, people were singing, playing music, they were tying neckties to the fence. You had signs that were reading, "Free the dads, close the camps." It was a peaceful vigil. It was people coming together to celebrate Father's Day, and a lot of the fathers who are hidden behind those gates. There are dozens of accusations of human rights abuses happening behind Delaney Hall, and these families wanted to show that there's some sense of solidarity, there's some sense of humanity that's advocating for those people's best interests. Among those who attended the Father's Day vigil was Gabriela Soto. Her husband was detained by ICE earlier this year, February 2nd, and he has not been able to see his children. This article from Yahoo News goes over it in detail. Martin Soto was detained by ICE on February 2nd while he was out buying diapers. Jesus. His family says, and in the months since his pregnant wife has become one of the most prominent voices at the protests outside Delaney Hall in Newark. We are not allowed to bring any cards or letters, but I will try today to do a video chat with him so he can see the drawings my oldest child has for him, she told NewJersey.com on Sunday morning. It's now been nearly a month since Soto and other detainees staged hunger and labor strikes to draw attention to conditions inside the facility, claiming they were served rotten food and denied medical care. Soto was relocated to the detention center in Elizabeth shortly after. Federal officials have disclosed little about Soto's arrest and detention, saying that he is here in the U.S. illegally and faced a charge of assault prior to his arrest. This is Martin Soto with his children. Ugh. I I'm at a loss for words when I see images like this. The way that we are treating families, especially families of young children, and we're just taking away their father, it blows my mind. And at that same protest was the woman that got struck by the vehicle, like you saw at the beginning of this video. There are two very different accounts of the exact story on the ground, what happened. Organizers, including Bertie Green, who's the co-founder of Sussex Visibility Brigade, said that ICE agents began lining up behind the gates, then GEO Group employees started to drive through in personal vehicles. That was the Dodge Charger that struck the woman who was waving an American flag on Father's Day at the protest. She was not facing the road, she didn't even see it coming, and she was hit by a car who clearly did not care about her personal well-being and safety. After the strike, ICE agents came out of the gates and deployed pepper spray and mace on the protesters, labeling them rioters. DHS has also spoken about the incident, and they refused to confirm whether or not the driver was an ICE employee or an employee of GEO Group. Their official statement called the crowd rioters, claimed that they surrounded an employee's vehicle, assaulted federal officers, and interfered with a lawful arrest. It's a very disturbing video, but let's watch one more time if the ICE vehicle was surrounded. As you can see, nobody's surrounding the vehicle, nobody's moving around it. You have protesters on both sides of the roads. She was just waving a flag. They easily could have honked to get her out of the way. They could have signaled that he was trying to drive, but instead he runs right through her. Here's Congressman from New Jersey, Rob Menendez, who spoke directly about this incident outside Delaney Hall.
I want to bring in New Jersey Democratic Congressman Rob Menendez. Congressman Menendez, I want to begin with your reaction to that video and what happened on Father's Day at Delaney Hall.
Yeah, it's just horrible to see. I mean, the lawlessness at Delaney Hall continues. As you mentioned, this was a group of individuals who were there, highlighting the fact that many of the detained individuals at Delaney Hall are fathers. They're inside on Father's Day. It was the same situation on Mother's Day, when so many mothers were not home with their children, many of whom are U.S. citizen children, because of this administration and who they are choosing to detain, not just at Delaney Hall, but across the country.
I want to get your thoughts on a striking new report from the Marshall Project because, you know, there are these elements of the Trump administration's crackdown that are very visible, like what's happening at Delaney Hall and what's happening at Dilley in Texas. But then there are these other parts of the machinery in the background that I think very few Americans and voters are aware of. The Marshall Project has this new report out about the Trump administration using a little known and little used 1996 law in order to fine immigrants. And some of them are facing fines over $1 million. They're said to have deportation orders, but still be living in the U.S. But according to attorneys, some have open immigration cases, have permission to stay there. In one case, a woman is married to a U.S. citizen who's an active duty U.S. service member. She and her husband have 4 U.S. citizen children, and she's been applying for legal residency. And she has a massive judgment notice against her. And, you know, it appears that the administration is now sending these private firms after immigrants to try to collect this money from them. And I just want to get a sense from you about what's happening here and whether it's above board.
Well, what you're seeing is a continuation of Stephen Miller and the Trump administration attempting to use every possible tool to inflict as much harm as they can on our immigrant neighbors. They will utilize any option that they have, including levying fees against individuals like the one you mentioned who are trying to go through a broken immigration system, but nonetheless go through it to the best of their abilities. And this administration is exploiting that broken immigration system to carry out this very extreme un-American immigration policy that's headed by Stephen Miller. So you're going to see a number of things like this, whether it's fees, whether it's the detention of nonviolent individuals, which ICE's own data shows to be the case, slowing down DACA renewal. All of these things are meant to grind the system to a halt. And it's meant to break these individuals so they give up. That's the reality.
I mean, that's exactly correct. That is the intention of the Trump administration. They want to utilize every tool in their toolbox to make these migrant families feel pressured, feel scared. They're implementing fear tactics to try to persuade people to leave on their own. But like Congressman Menendez just pointed out, some of these are mothers with children that are all citizens and husbands that are active duty service members. What conservative who claims to be a patriot or care about this country is willing to say, yes, let's deport the mother of 4 children who are all citizens here and whose husband is serving in the military? None of this makes sense. And it is always about the xenophobia about where somebody was born in a different part of the world that's informing these people's decision making. It's not whether or not they're a violent criminal or whether or not they present a threat to the American citizens, because they don't. No mother of 4 children who's never committed a violent crime in her life deserves to be violently removed from this country simply because the color of her skin or the paperwork that she doesn't have. Now, as far as the condition of the woman who was struck by a vehicle, the New York Times reported that the woman was taken to University Hospital in Newark, where she was treated for injuries that were described as not life-threatening, thank God. The police officials were continuing to investigate the incident on Monday. Officials declined to provide further details, such as the identities of the protester and the driver, and whether the driver will face charges. The driver was turning into an entrance frequently used by employees of the detention facility, which is run by GEO Group, a private prison company that operates many federal immigration facilities in the United States. The incident was the largest flare-up outside of Delaney Hall, a 1,000-bed detention center that has emerged as an ongoing flashpoint more than a year into President Trump's immigration crackdown. Scrutiny over the facility's living conditions has drawn Democratic lawmakers and demonstrators from New Jersey and beyond to its gates. The Department of Homeland Security, which oversees immigration detention operations at Delaney Hall, said the vehicle was not being driven by a federal employee and referred questions to GEO Group. Homeland Security officials described the demonstrators who were protesting on Sunday as rioters and said they had assaulted federal officers, interfered with the lawful arrests, and tried to obstruct law enforcement operations. The officials said that one protester had bitten a law enforcement officer but did not provide details. And that's very typical of Department of Homeland Security. Make these sensationalized accusations without presenting any evidence. It's the same reason they called Renee Good and Alex Preddy domestic terrorists of the United States. Even though Alex Preddy was helping a woman who was pushed to the ground by ICE, and Renee Good was trying to leave a situation where she was surrounded by ICE agents. This is typical pattern of behavior for DHS. Make these sensationalized allegations, zero evidence to back it up. The ACLU has reported that nearly 300 people have brought to light the medical neglect, spoiled or inadequate food, and other torturous conditions at the facility by signing an open letter. The hunger and labor strike at Delaney Hall has garnered support and solidarity from loved ones of detained people, community members, and elected officials who have shown up to largely peaceful protests outside the facility. Again, 300 people. This is talking about rotten food, denied medical access, metallic and undrinkable water, no toilet paper or menstruation products, overcrowded, non air conditioned room, and COVID and flu spreading throughout the facility. There have been at least 60 lawsuits filed on behalf of those that are inside the detention facility regarding the medical neglect and abusive conditions. And ICE's response to the organizers who are demanding change is to transfer them out. Those that are making the most ruckus inside the facility, who are organizing the hunger and labor strikes, who are trying to galvanize solidarity amongst the people being subjected to inhumane conditions, are being removed. Like Martin Soto, who we talked about earlier, was sent to a different detention center because he was causing too much accountability on GEO Group. And for those that are in New Jersey, there are legislators and health inspectors who are trying to inspect the conditions in Delaney Hall that are being blocked by GEO Group from getting full access. So we have a for profit company, a corporation who owns a detention facility that's used to incarcerate migrants, that's refusing state officials from being able to see what's happening inside. This is the most clear acts of corruption. If they have nothing to hide, why are they blocking any state health inspector from being able to see the conditions inside? The woman hit by a car on Father's Day is still recovering. She didn't block anybody. She was there to advocate for the conditions of the fathers that are being held inside GEO Group, where GEO Group is making hundreds of millions of dollars through government contracts. The Newark police investigation is still ongoing. No charges have been filed as of right now, and DHS is continuing to deny that they are complicit in any situation that happened outside. A $1 billion contract for a for profit detention center, a woman who's struck by a car that's on the ground and is still recovering, inspectors being turned away and refused access to the facility, and Father's Day vigil attendees being declared rioters. None of this is okay. When the government calls a Father's Day vigil a riot, you have to ask yourself, what are they trying to prevent you from actually seeing?